What if the person you're holding onto so tightly is the very one God is gently taking away, not to break your heart, but to save your soul? There was a time when I believed love meant holding on, no matter how much it hurt. I thought if you truly loved someone, you would fight through every silence, every distance, every tear. And I did. I fought for someone who once felt like home. In the beginning, everything felt right. Their presence brought peace, their words felt like comfort, and their love seemed like a blessing I had prayed for. But slowly, something began to change, not all at once, but quietly, like the fading light of a sunset you don't notice until it's almost gone. The first sign was the loss of peace. Conversations that once made me smile started leaving me restless. I would overthink simple words, replay moments, and question everything. It felt like my heart was no longer at ease, as if something inside me was whispering, "This isn't right anymore." Then came the imbalance. I was the one reaching out, the one trying, the one fixing things that kept breaking. Love started to feel like a responsibility instead of a connection. I gave more, waited longer, and hoped harder, but something inside me knew love was never meant to feel this heavy. And then, the distance. Not just physical, but emotional. Even when they were there, they felt far away. The bond that once felt unbreakable now felt fragile, like it could shatter with one more misunderstanding. I kept asking myself, why does this feel so different now? The hardest part was realizing we were no longer aligned. The things that mattered to me didn't seem to matter to them anymore. Our values, our dreams, our direction, it all started pulling us apart. I tried to ignore it, tried to adjust myself, but deep down, I knew I was losing who I truly was. And then, life began to shift in unexpected ways. Opportunities, changes, and circumstances kept pushing us in different directions. At first, I resisted it. I tried to hold on tighter. But the more I held on, the more everything slipped away. That's when I realized something I had been too afraid to accept. Maybe this wasn't happening to break me. Maybe it was happening to protect me. Sometimes, when God removes someone from your life, it doesn't come with a warning. It comes with confusion, pain, and unanswered questions. But hidden inside that pain is a purpose, a quiet protection you don't understand yet. Love isn't always about staying. Sometimes, love is about letting go, trusting that what's meant for you will never need to be forced, and what leaves you is never meant to stay. And maybe, just maybe, the person you're losing today is making space for the love you truly deserve tomorrow. In the beginning, love felt like calm water, soft, steady, and safe. Being with them brought a quiet kind of happiness, the kind that didn't need loud words or constant reassurance. Just their presence was enough to make everything feel right. You could sit in silence together and still feel understood, still feel connected, still feel at peace. But slowly, something began to shift. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently, almost invisibly. The peace that once came so naturally started to fade. Conversations that used to feel effortless began to feel heavy. You found yourself thinking more before speaking, worrying more about how they would react, questioning whether your words would be misunderstood. The comfort you once felt turned into uneasiness. You started overanalyzing small things, why their tone sounded different, why their replies felt colder, why their presence no longer brought the same warmth. Nights became longer, filled with thoughts that wouldn't quiet down. Instead of feeling secure, you began to feel uncertain. You tried to fix it. You told yourself it was just a phase, that every relationship has its ups and downs. You adjusted your behavior, softened your words, gave more of your time and energy, hoping to bring back what once felt so natural. But no matter how much you tried, that sense of peace didn't return the way it used to. Deep inside, there was a quiet voice, a feeling you couldn't ignore. It wasn't loud or forceful, but it was constant. It told you that something wasn't right anymore. That love, in its purest form, is not supposed to feel like a burden on your heart. Instead of feeling safe, you felt drained. Instead of feeling understood, you felt alone, even when they were right there. The connection that once gave you strength now seemed to take it away, little by little. And in those quiet moments, when everything else was silent, you began to realize that the peace you lost wasn't just about them, it was a sign, a gentle nudge, a reminder that something in your life was no longer aligned with what your heart truly needed. At first, love felt balanced, like two hearts meeting halfway, two souls choosing each other again and again. The effort was natural, not forced. Calls were returned, messages were answered with warmth, and time was made without excuses. It never felt like one person was carrying more than the other, because both were equally invested in making the connection grow. But slowly, almost without noticing, the balance began to shift. You started to feel like you were the one holding everything together. You were the one initiating conversations, planning meetings, checking in, and making sure things didn't fall apart. What once felt mutual now started to feel like a responsibility resting only on your shoulders. At first, you didn't question it. You told yourself they were just busy, that life gets overwhelming sometimes. So you gave more. You became more patient, more understanding, more available. You adjusted your expectations and convinced yourself that love sometimes requires sacrifice. But the more you gave, the more it felt like you were giving alone. Their effort didn't match yours anymore. Replies became shorter, attention became rare, and the enthusiasm that once filled your moments together slowly disappeared. You found yourself waiting, for a message, for a call, for a sign that they still cared the way they used to. And still, you tried harder. You thought maybe if you loved them better, supported them more, or stayed a little longer, things would return to how they once were. You ignored the exhaustion building inside you, the silent frustration, the feeling of being taken for granted. Love began to feel like chasing something that kept moving further away. No matter how much effort you put in, it never seemed enough to bring back the same energy from their side. You started questioning your worth, wondering if you were asking for too much or expecting too much. But deep down, there was a truth you couldn't ignore, that real love doesn't make you beg for attention, doesn't make you feel like you're the only one trying, doesn't leave you carrying the weight of two hearts alone while the other slowly lets go. In the beginning, closeness felt natural. You shared laughter, secrets, and dreams, and every moment together made your heart feel full. Even when apart, you felt connected, like invisible threads kept your hearts in rhythm. Distance wasn't a problem because the bond was strong, and love made every mile feel shorter. But over time, a subtle shift began to appear. It wasn't dramatic, just small things that hinted at a growing separation. Calls that used to end with smiles started feeling rushed. Messages that once carried warmth now felt cold or delayed. You noticed a hesitation in their voice, a pause, where there used to be excitement, and a lack of eagerness to bridge the space between you. At first, you tried to ignore it. Maybe they were tired, busy, or stressed. You reminded yourself that love isn't always constant, that life throws distractions, and that patience is a sign of devotion. You convinced yourself that this distance was temporary, that love would naturally bring them back closer. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and the gap didn't shrink. It began to feel like a chasm, invisible yet undeniable. You felt it when you wanted to share a small joy, a laugh, or even a quiet moment, and realized they weren't there in the same way anymore. The conversations lacked the spark, the spontaneity vanished, and the emotional connection you once treasured started slipping through your fingers. You found yourself longing for gestures that used to be effortless. You remembered how they used to show up, how their presence could fill a room and your heart at the same time. Now, you were left with echoes of memories, waiting for signs that might never come. The hardest part was the uncertainty. There was no clear reason for this distance, no argument, no fight, no explanation. It wasn't about anything you did or didn't do, it just happened. And that made it even more painful, because love, when it's real, doesn't usually leave you wondering why you're being left behind. You tried to fill the emptiness with hope, telling yourself they were still there in spirit, that love could survive this quiet drifting apart. But deep down, every ignored call, every delayed message, every moment of feeling unseen whispered the same truth, that sometimes, even without words, distance is God's way of showing you that this connection is no longer meant to hold you both together. In the beginning, love felt effortless because you shared more than just affection, you shared understanding. Your dreams aligned, your principles resonated, and your hearts seemed to beat in a similar rhythm. It was like finding someone whose soul reflected your own, someone who made you feel seen, heard, and understood without needing to explain yourself. But over time, small differences began to surface. At first, they were barely noticeable, a preference here, a habit there, but slowly, they started to matter more. Conversations that once flowed easily began to carry subtle tension. Choices that seemed simple to you felt complicated to them, and vice versa. What was once charming about their quirks started to feel frustrating. You tried to overlook it. You told yourself that love is about compromise, about accepting someone despite their imperfections. So you adjusted, softened your words, bent a little to match their expectations, and hoped that over time, they would do the same. But instead of harmony, you noticed more friction. The clashes grew more than minor differences, they began to touch the core of who you were. Your priorities, your morals, your vision for the future, they no longer lined up in the way they once did. Decisions about small things revealed deeper gaps in understanding. Choices about big things made your heart question if your paths were still meant to run together. Even when love was still present, the misalignment created strain. Arguments arose over things that used to feel inconsequential. You realize that loving someone isn't only about passion or connection, it's also about sharing a compatible vision for life. Without that, love becomes a tug of war between what you want and what they want, and the harmony you once felt starts to crumble. You tried to adjust, to explain, to reason, but the harder you tried, the more evident it became that some differences couldn't be reconciled. Your values weren't just preferences, they were the foundation of who you are. And when those foundations clash, it's impossible to maintain the same closeness without losing a piece of yourself. Every conversation that ended in misunderstanding, every disagreement that left your heart heavy, every moment you felt like you were forcing connection instead of naturally feeling it, all of these whispered that love alone cannot bridge the gap between two souls whose principles no longer align. Sometimes, love feels like a straight road, a path you walk together with certainty, imagining a shared future filled with dreams, laughter, and quiet moments. You plan, hope, and invest your heart fully, believing that together is forever. And yet, life has a way of surprising you in ways you cannot foresee. You start noticing subtle signs, opportunities, changes, and circumstances that shift your direction. Maybe a new responsibility emerges, a job opportunity arises, or a situation forces you to reevaluate priorities. At first, you resist it. You fight against the changes because your heart is attached, because love has always felt like a promise to hold on, no matter what. You try to keep the relationship on the course you imagined, hoping nothing will disturb the bond you've cherished so deeply. But life doesn't always follow the plans of our hearts. Doors that once felt open begin to close gently, and paths that seemed parallel start to diverge. You feel the push of forces beyond your control, nudging you away from the person you thought you'd never let go of. At first, it feels unfair, even cruel. You question why this is happening, why love, something so sacred, feels like it is slipping through your fingers. Then comes the quiet realization, maybe this isn't about losing love, but about finding purpose. Maybe God's timing and plan are guiding you toward something greater, something aligned with your soul even if your heart doesn't yet understand. Every twist, every unexpected turn, every moment of separation is a part of a bigger design that is meant to protect you, nurture you, and lead you toward the life you are truly meant to live. You start noticing small details, the gentle way circumstances shift, the people who enter or leave your life, the lessons that appear when you least expect them. It becomes clear that these moments aren't random, they are divine nudges, whispering that your path is being redirected for your growth, your healing, and your ultimate happiness. Even when your heart aches, even when the loss feels unbearable, there's a sense that this redirection is purposeful. The love that remains, the love that leaves, and the love that waits elsewhere, they are all part of a journey you cannot yet fully see. What seemed like an ending may be a beginning, a turning point, a gentle push toward a destiny where your heart and your life align in ways you never imagined. The moments when God redirects your path are often the hardest because they challenge your expectations of love, trust, and certainty, yet within that challenge lies a quiet promise that the road ahead, though unknown, is leading you exactly where you need to go.